Hey everybody, in the last class, we covered a lot. We went over getting to know the team. We went over who's in charge, who can be second in charge or take over if who's in charge is not there. We went over who is capable of doing what things. What are those critical things that must be done and what to do if critical functions or things can't be done. We left off on number 5. Number 5, what is the minimum operating structure or requirements needed for your department to carry out only those critical functions? See, this is looking more at the programs and the services you use. Note this, just because you outsource a service doesn't mean you are free and clear from that service or function that is needed to be completed. There's an old saying that I've been using for years. Your routing number, your problem. Another one I'm known for, you can't outsource liability. When we talk about operating structure, I'm really referring more to the programs and the services that are used to perform the critical functions you've identified in previous sessions. In a pandemic situation, getting the end goal achieved is what is most important. Doing so safely and securely is a great idea as well, but doing it all ideally, that's more like a convenience. We're in survival mode. Sometimes you have to go back to an old way of doing things. Depending on how long you have been processing, well, for those of you who are new to the industry at least, there was a time that all this stuff that we do now was done one paper slip at a time, no joke. There was also a time that each and every file was manually moved, manually uploaded, manually posted. Not everything, heck, hardly anything, was even automated at one point in time. So if there is software that just helps with automated functions and features and functionality, and it's a critical function or feature or functionality, you might not need that in your operating structure. You just might need to know it needs to be performed. It could be done manually. Does it still need to be completed though? Yes. Can it be completed in different ways? Yes. I also remember years ago working with an application that was server-based. This was in the days when there were individual servers at each individual location running independent software applications, and we were evolving into an online environment, going to the so-called cloud. And this is before it was even called the cloud. As we were transitioning people from LAN-based physical location servers to the online environment, they would say, what's our plan if the online environment goes down? I'm not saying if the internet goes down, and the internet has had a lot of struggles, but stayed up and worked effectively since everybody started working from home. But if the actual online application were to go down, I simply looked at them and said, hey, it's really easy. Revert back to the old server that you have. Keep it as a backup, at least for right now. They looked at me and said, we can do that. And I told them, the key is identifying what services, what operating environment you have. It doesn't necessarily mean what you currently use. It means finding a solution. But you have to have available to use some type of solution, have available some type of backup plan that if the software or service you're used to isn't available, it doesn't mean you're not able to still operate. Like doing returns on Ideal Software versus going directly to the Fed and doing returns on FedLine. It can be done that way. And guess what? We need something to use that software or service on. And that's going to take us to number 6. Number 6 is, it's not just what staff, it's not just what services or applications, but what about the hardware that is necessary to perform those critical functions? Yeah, what hardware? I recently spoke with an organization that when it came to getting up and being operational during COVID-19, they ended up having to ship, and I kid you not, ship a desktop monitor and computer to an employee's home for them to be able to work and operate. It's about ridiculous, seriously. That is a multiple point of failure possibilities that needs to be accounted for, plus the security drove me nuts. The employee there that is too critical is one case. The hardware that is being shipped and could be lost is another case. Not having a backup or easier solution is another case. Being restricted to just that desktop computer is another situation. See, if those critical functions have to be completed remotely, what systems would need or be needed on the designated employee's computer. And how can they get to that computer? How can that computer be made easily available, but securely available? And are there any remote working arrangements already in place? Think about that one. We still got to be able to operate. What hardware will they use? All right, number 7. 7 then goes like this. Each department perform an analysis and determine exactly what the magic number of employees is absolutely required to perform the bare minimum critical functions. Not how many employees you have, but just how many could you theoretically perform all functions if needed. We've talked a lot about employees. Let me elaborate on this one a little bit more. When we were talking about all the previous information about putting it together, well, here this could mean more things like dual authentication don't have to happen. It's not ideal to go into that situation. It's not even recommended, but it could be what is required to be able to get us at operating with minimal personnel. It's also not having the dream team. We talked about when you have that one key person that knows everything. Well, sometimes people are like, oh, I just need these 2 people because they can do all these functions. Good luck in it being those 2 people that will be available. If they're required to be there as part of the minimum team, then you truly haven't identified your minimum required team to be operational. I also know this, depending on your size, the complexity and amount of processing, this number can be as low as 1, but as high as whatever you need. And if it is only 1, I don't know if that's great. You better make sure you got a backup plan for that 1. And finally, to wrap up the pandemic 8, here's number 8. After answering number 7, I'm sure you remember when we went through and we ranked the departments and we ranked the functions that they do in order of importance, and we said that everyone is critical in some way. This is where we want cross-training, or at a bare minimum, identification of skill sets. Do you have certain employees who have experience in other departments or in other specific software or systems? Can they, in a bind, pinch hit on urgent tasks outside of their current department if needed? Think about it. For the departments that have less critical roles in maintaining basic operations, especially in the event where other staff members in other more critically needed departments aren't available, or in the event that they just aren't able to meet the need of what is happening and need some help. So what's going to happen? What's this look like? That's going to be up to you. It's going to be determining who can go pitch it, who can help out a team that's struggling. Now, what's next? What's next is if you've answered all these questions, then it's time to take your findings and to consolidate all of it in one document or one spreadsheet for easy reference. What's that document? What's that spreadsheet going to look like? Well, it's going to be very different for every one of you, because I'm fairly certain the findings are different for everyone. This is also not what we call a static document. It will grow and it will change over time. It will need to be reassessed periodically. It will, again, grow and change over time. These are just 8 questions that had a lot of questions that went into them. These 8 questions over the past couple of classes, they've helped us to really take everything we have seen over the years from other sources that we need to take into consideration, the FFIEC, the FDIC, the OCC, even the NCUA, and they help us to make sure we are in a position to be able to serve our communities, to be able to serve our account holders. The electronic payments industry is critical in the best of times, and in the worst of times, it's even more important than that. We gotta have plans that are in place to cover everything. Remember, you can go back through any of these videos. You can replay any of the questions if I went too fast, or if you want to get more on it. You can pause as you need to too. Just make sure you have everything you need to cover your specific situations and circumstances so that you are prepared when it comes to a pandemic, that you have your pandemic plan in place and you're ready to be processing in a pandemic.